This week on Quality Digest Live, we look at performance measures that really drive improvement.
And we'll learn how to effectively standardize work processes across an organization. That and much more when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for August 26, 2011. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Editor-in-Chief Dirk Ducharme. Well, we're covering two stories on the show this week concerning the nuts and bolts of organizational improvement. The first is by Aaron Hariharan. I hope I said that right, Aaron, or Aaron. And this story is, I'll bring it up here so we can look at it, the layers of performance improvement. And
I believe that ran on Wednesday's issue of QD.
That was actually, and Aaron is a frequent contributor. He's actually a new contributor to us. He's written 4 or 5 stories, all of them very well received. This is his latest, the Layers of Performance Measurement. And in this story, Aaron once again tells a fictional story, which he does very well with a cast of characters at an Indian insurance company, auto insurance company. And what he's trying to point out in this is that very often when we look at performance measures, they're performance measures that are basically financially based. They're kind of at the end of the chain. It's like, how did we do? How were sales, right? And one of the problems with these is that they're not very good at predicting the future. They're what you call
trailing indicators.
Trailing indicators, lagging indicators. So in the case of, let's say, their insurance company or any company that's very heavily sales oriented, you look at how many sales did we have, how many claims did we write.
Revenue is just sales revenue.
Yeah, sales revenues. How are we doing in terms of market share? Well, in his story, he sets up this situation where the CEO or the manager comes in. He's all upset, and he says, "Oh, we got to do something. I just got the latest report, and our market share is really slipping. What are we going to do? The sky is falling." And so he calls a big meeting. They all get together, and they come up with the usual ideas. Well, we got to sell more.
Okay.
Well, okay, that makes sense. We got to reduce our rates so that we can compete better, or we got to advertise more. All of this is based on just this trailing indicator of sales are down.
Sales are down, and which may have been from 3 months ago. Maybe they're looking at quarter to quarter.
Exactly. And that's the problem. Is it's not predictive. It's reactive. You get these sales figures, and now all of a sudden you're going to do something on data that's months old.
Sure, it's what Aaron refers to as the top layer.
Exactly.
The top layer.
The top layer. So the committee starts brainstorming. They start thinking, well, what can we do? We need to measure more then, and somebody, the bright light in the organization, suggests that, well, you guys are measuring the wrong thing. We're just measuring sales performance, which is good. I mean, you got to know that. But maybe we can dig deeper. What else can we measure? And somebody says, well, how about customer complaints? Another person says, what about, we did a customer satisfaction survey 6 months ago. Maybe we can glean some data from that.
What do we find out from that? Sure.
And then another bright spot in the organization. This is the one that found the dead lizard in an earlier story.
A couple articles ago.
A couple articles, the dead stinky lizard in the air conditioning. He pipes up and he says, well, there's a lot of performance measures that we have. For instance, we know how many claims we process. We know how many complaints we get each day. We know how quickly it takes us to pay out on a claim and how long it takes us to return phone calls and so on and so forth. There's a lot of internal metrics that we already have. We have this data at our disposal. We can use this data. And also we have a compliance audit. And we have reports that come out of the compliance audit. So maybe we can use these metrics to work our way back up the chain and figure out why our sales and our market share are declining.
And those are enablers. Those are levers or enablers of the levels above. In other words, how you service your customers, their level of satisfaction, how you address their complaints will obviously flow upward to indicate if you have more sales or less sales. So, but those are not really lagging indicators. Those are more real-time indicators. You can know within a given hour how many complaints you filed, you've run in your call center perhaps. And you can know that with with a great deal of specificity and a great real time.
And I would say also in terms of customer complaints, that's very very quick feedback, because you will know if you're doing something right, you should immediately start to see your customer complaints start to go with, I would imagine, within a month. If you're processing, if an insurance company processes, especially a large insurance company, processes thousands of claims every day. So it's very quick. If you make a big change and that immediately is going to ripple through your customer base, you should see within a fairly short period of time whether you're doing something right. Your complaint rate's going to stay the same, or it's going to decrease or increase.
But here's the point. Here's what Aaron is saying. Yes, you'll see that in that metric, but you won't see it in the top layer, the top line, in terms of sales, in terms of revenues.
Right.
You will eventually.
You will eventually.
Hopefully, but you're not going to see it right away. So that's what he's really talking about.
Right.
Is how do you measure that in closer to real time?
Now, he doesn't put it this way. He also holds out kind of in his story, the person from the HR department chimes in and says, well, hey, I've got an idea. What if for our performance appraisals, what if for our performance appraisals, rather than just look for our salespeople, just look at sales figures, we tie it into the other pieces as well. And I've got a little PowerPoint slide here. Here in our PowerPoint, this is one of the diagrams from Aaron's article, and here he shows the 4 layers of performance measurement. So obviously we were talking about, this is the lagging indicator, this is the financial performance, but under that you had layer 2, which is customer voice, layer 3, internal process measures, and of course layer 4, process compliance, in the case where there are internal or external audits, you know how well you're complying with your processes are complying. So the HR person says, well, look, when we're looking at our salespeople, not only should we look at their sales performance, look at customer complaints related to that person's insurance policies that they've written up, or claims processing, that sort of thing. Let's look at the internal process and measures related to this particular salesperson, and compliance audits. If there are compliance audits in as much as they relate to a particular salesperson or maybe a sales department, if you're departmentalized like that, you can get some idea of how that is trickling its way up, and base your performance appraisals upon it.
Right. And again, it's all going to come out in the wash eventually down the line with regard to the top layer, sales, revenues. Right. But you can't, in anything close to real time, adjust that to that. You can't say with any real degree of specificity that you know where you're at with regard to sales. Right. Generally, it's again, as we say, as Aaron said, it's more of a lagging indicator.
So I guess the upshot of this article is you need to start from the outside looking in. Okay, so obviously this is kind of the whole 5 whys thing, essentially. Sure. Okay, sales are down. Why are sales down? Well, okay, let's start looking at our internal metrics that we have and start drilling down into it. We can find some problem areas. We start working on those areas that we have immediate metrics for, and hopefully as we address those things, standardize processes and so forth, we would hope to see in a few months to those financial performance figures turn around, which is kind of validation that you're doing something right on the front end.
Absolutely. But the key to that really, and it's going to be a segue into the story that I'm going to cover here in a moment, is buy-in. You need the buy-in from the users, from your rank and file, from your workers. That process, that change that you want to make is one that they're going to buy into. They're going to wholeheartedly agree that they can do that. So again, that's the story that we're going to cover next. Is a story by Davis Balistracci, which actually was a 2-part story. Don't create standards, just to create standards. And that ran on Monday and Tuesday's issue of Quality.
Right. And Davis is a frequent contributor as well?
Yep. Davis is a frequent contributor.
Typically a statistics writer.
Statistics is Davis's, is what he normally writes about, and he normally looks at process from a statistical framework. But in this case, he doesn't go as much with the stats. He really looks more at process for the sake of improvement of the organization. And it's interesting because he talks about whatever kind of improvement you want to make, whatever kind of methodology that may be that you're going to bring into your organization, whether it may be ISO 9001 or it may be a Six Sigma or a TQM or a lean implementation, whatever that methodology is, you've got to get the buy-in. Now, we know that you can really make change for 2 reasons. You can either do it because you want to check a box, get a cert, pass an audit, or you can do it really because you want to really improve the organization. Now, I think in their heart of hearts, many managers, many top managers in organizations, if you really press them on it, would say, yeah, it's really about the former. It's really about checking off that box.
Right.
But those of us that are true believers, you out there who are our readership, true believers in quality understand that you can't do that. You can't do it that way. You can't just check the box and have that ripple through the organization effectively. You can't make change and sustain change, even more importantly, by doing it that way.
Right. There has to be, you have to have your final goal of actually improving the organization through these methodologies.
Right. Now, and what Davis talks about is the fact that you're going to hit resistance when you do this. When you really, really embrace the idea that you're going to adopt change management in your organization, you're going to do things a different way because either they're not working the way you're doing them now, or they're not working just as well as you want them to. You want to just improve for whatever reason it may be, that you're going to hit resistance. People, and we see this many times with people that have been in organizations, large organizations, for a number of years. Maybe they've been there for 10, 15, 20 years. They may have seen what they would consider to be flavor of the month improvement programs come and go half a dozen times in that period of time. And you're going to get in that initial meeting, you may very well get that either actually or just figuratively, the rolling of the eyes. Okay, here we go again. Because psychologically, we know, we've talked about this, and it's something that I'm continually fascinated by, is the psychology of change. That people, many people, most people, fear change.
Right.
They fear change on some level, and I'm still trying to understand it, because I do too. I fear it as well many times. Why that is. Why, if you explain it to somebody and you look at it and you say, well, we're going to change, this is why we're doing it, and this is what the reason is, they still fear it.
I think sometimes, I've been in on, well, let's talk about standards. I mean, I've been on the end where you're working for a company and you get a military contract.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden, okay, we have to change what we're doing for this particular product line in order to meet mil standards. And honestly, there's this sense of like, well, what was wrong with what we were doing? Are you saying we were doing something wrong? You want us to apply this standard because our standard, what, is bad?
And if so, why didn't we change it 10 years ago? If it wasn't effective then, why is it not effective now?
I think they take it personally if it's not introduced properly. It's like, we're making this change because you guys are screwing up.
Right. And people, right, exactly right. And people think about change and they say, well, it's going to be more work, or it's going to be more boring, or the bosses aren't going to embrace it. They're going to tell me to do it and they're not going to really do it.
And then next month we're going to do
something else.
Yeah.
And so why even bother?
Right.
So there's definitely that undercurrent within these things. And Davis talks about that in his article. But he also offers some suggestions and some ways that he can suggest that you would help overcome that. Certainly, talking to people, measuring. Of course, Davis is a statistician. Talking to people and measuring the current state and the future state of the process, so that you know and you can show the people who are involved in it how these changes are helping improve the organization.
Right.
You have to understand that some people are going to have vested interest in doing things the way they've been done, even and especially if they don't work right.
Right.
Maybe people feel like, well, if we really roll up our sleeves and get in the process, I'm going to be exposed. I've been doing it wrong all this time.
Right.
So they're going to, in some way, want to hide it or sweep it under the rug or whatever it may be.
There's also, turf wars. I mean, there's
silos.
A lot of,
all that stuff happens. But so what Davis is saying is really the takeaway here, and what I took away from it is, you've got to uncover the real reason for resistance. Why people in your organization don't want to change. What is it that's preventing them from really buying in? Because if you don't do that, if you don't get that buy-in, if you just say the words and don't embed it in the organization, it's not going to change. It's going to be a flavor of the month, and it's going to be gone in a year or less. And that's not the intention of change. It's not why you bring in certainly an ISO 9001.
So his suggestion is that they have to be doing a better job of explaining the purpose,
the purpose,
and the goals,
and understand, and making sure that everybody's bought in. But really doing your due diligence beforehand, and interviewing the people that are at the business end of this machine and seeing what they're doing and why. Why they're doing it the way they're doing it, why, if they don't want to change, what's the real reason for that resistance? Because, again, human nature, they're probably not going to tell you the real reason. They may say, well, we tried it that way 5 years ago and it didn't work. Did you?
Yeah.
Did you kind of try it that way and you just felt like it was uncomfortable? I mean, that's what he's talking about, is getting to the real reasons for the resistance, overcoming that. Once you do that and you can really get the buy-in from the rank and file, then you're well on your way. And I think that's the true point here.
Okay. Actually, kind of an interesting segue into our Tech Corner.
We're just all segues today.
We're all segues today.
We should be on our scooters.
This one is actually we got a press release last week. We get lots of those. This is a lean thinking app for the iPhone and iPad, and soon they'll have it for Android systems. It's from Lean Learning Solutions in Toronto, Ontario. And it's called the Lean Thinking app, and this is actually a spin-off from a Brain Booster pocket cards. These are little laminated cards this company puts out, and they're basically little cartoon cards that are used as simple reminders and simple teaching tools. I liked it, and I'll show you what this looks like. We happen to have it on a, let me load it up here, happen to have it on an iPad. And what they've done is they've taken their cards and simply, oh boy, I will bring it up on my iPad here. They've simply taken their cards, their Brain Booster cards, on this particular series and put them on an iPad app. So if we get this in the right spot here, okay. I'll show you the pictures. I won't show you the captions because you wouldn't be able to read them anyway. It'd be too small. But basically, this particular thing is on lean thinking, and it contrasts lean thinking to conventional thinking. So this first picture, for instance, is about leadership, and in lean leadership, the leader goes and sees for himself. The leader goes out to the shop floor, right? As opposed to, in this cartoon shows, traditional leadership or conventional thinking, the manager stays inside his office with a do not disturb sign on the door. Just go do your job. I'll catch up with you later. And he has no idea he or she has no idea what's going on out on the floor. Here's another example. What are we talking about here? What's a good one? Standards. Okay. So another idea, lean thinking says standards are good. We have a simple visual standard on all the important things that we do. So standards are nice. We were just talking about that. Standards are nice because they are a visual way of a visual and organized way of describing what you do so that everybody understands their part in it and how they fit in to processes upstream and downstream. The conventional way of thinking is no standards, and there's just kind of a spaghetti, I'm sorry, not spaghetti. There's no standards. Nobody really knows what they're doing, or the standards are hidden away. They're in a drawer somewhere. Yeah, somebody may have written out a flow chart, but we don't know where it's at, and therefore we're not gonna follow it. And so there's just basically 12 of these, and they're all they contrast lean thinking to conventional thinking.
You know what I like about this? I mean, really, we can look at this and we can say, well, this is quality 101, lean 101.
It's very basic stuff.
But most of us, or most of you that are out there, may end up on a shop floor with folks that really don't have a lot of connection with this information. And you bring it down on your iPhone, perhaps, and maybe you see a process at play where you want to maybe have it as a teaching moment, and you want to say, this visual aid that's simply right here that you can just say, hey, look at this. Let me just show you this for 30 seconds.
Which picture is you?
Is right, exactly right.
Like, are you this picture or are you that picture?
And this is why the other one, the after of the before and after, is more valid. Really.
Yeah, it kind of provides you a launching point to discuss topics that may not be familiar to readers. Or actually, what they say on their website is more of a reminder. I can see its value as a reminder. I think they're pretty simple. I think if you're already familiar with lean, you're going to know all these things. I see it more as an introductory tool just to get the discussion going.
Get a conversation.
I mean, I can totally see sitting next to somebody and really flipping through and say, like, here's two pictures. Is that one you or is that one you?
Yep.
And if they're saying it's the conventional one, it's like, well, don't you see how this one? Let's talk about this idea here. Don't you see how standards and organization, how that makes sense, how visual tools, how that might help you do your job better?
Well, this is a visual tool right here.
And this is a visual tool right here.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Is we're trying to make these concepts easily digestible for people that don't read Quality Digest daily every day, perhaps, and aren't familiar with some of these concepts. So this is a valuable little tool, and
by the way, the same company. I'm not sure I put the link. Oh boy, if I didn't, I'll try to remember to put the link on our website. The company is Lean Learning Solutions. You can Google that if I didn't put it on our website. They've actually got a couple other flip books as well, which, again, the little flip books are fun because they're small and they're just handy ways of just kind of jogging people's memories or showing them simple concepts, really. And I think they have two other, they don't have them on the iPad, but they have two other flip books that are quality related as well.
And this is really the new media version of that, really.
Exactly.
It's a very
like I said, really, you can tell what they've done. I mean, it's simple. They've simply taken their flip book and put it on an iPad app, but that's great. You can carry it around in your iPhone.
You know, like again, teaching opportunity. It's good to have on the spot, and good little tech corner segment there.
Yep.
So thanks, Dirk. Well, that's gonna. Oh, I'm sorry.
We got letters. I just want to do this real quick. I know we're running out of time here. We got a couple letters.
Yes.
This one actually was from Dean. This was based on last week's discussion with Harry Hertz, head of the Baldrige program for NIST.
Yep.
And there were a lot of letters actually on the article that this was based on too, which was from Bill Kalmar. And most of the letters were in support of funding for the Baldrige. There were a few that were against. Right? Yeah, not surprising. There were some really good comments that were against it, and I wanted to run this one from Dean, just because I think it's good to kind of show where other people are coming on funding for the Baldrige. I have 4 professional certifications from the ASQ. I have worked for a Baldrige Award winner. However, I find no national benefit to the Baldrige Award. This country spends considerably more than it earns on programs that do not cost very much. I would support killing the Malcolm Baldrige Award and many thousands of other national programs that serve no national purpose or priority. So his point is that, sure, you know, the Baldrige Award was a few $1 million, right? Not a whole lot of money.
Well, a few million here or there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money.
And I think that I think that was his point, right? Is that, you know, sure, you spend a few million on the Baldrige, you spend a few million here, a few million there, but if the return isn't there, then you're spending a lot of money.
Fair comment. And we did. This does represent an undercurrent of comment that we did get to this story that we covered in QDD and QDL. Definitely.
Another great letter that I wanted to run, I meant to run it last week, but we ran out of time. This was on a story that got a lot of comment. It was on the story by Patrick Stone, where he was giving his opinion on the FDA's raid on some raw milk producers, and his feeling that, like, Patrick Stone's feeling was, what a waste of time. There's other things the FDA could be spending their time on, time and energy on, other than raiding, you know, raw milk producers.
Sure.
And then we talked about this particular incident on our show. Ryan and I did. This is why you were gone. So here was this is a longish letter, but it was a really good. I'll show you why I like this letter. Starts off, I'm a regular reader of Quality Digest, and I will often send my colleagues links to well-written and insightful articles. From my perspective, Terror and Raw Milk was much less an article about quality and more the author's opinion about government intervention in the lives of American citizens. I'm surprised that Quality Digest provided a forum for what read like the ranting of a disgruntled government employee. The discussion on Quality Digest Live, however, that was with Ryan and I, was both interesting and informative. The link between quality standards and choice during the discussion was made without the article's bias toward government involvement. The point about possible conflicts of interest at the expense of quality concerns was appropriate, and that was from B.J. Berry. The reason I like this is that you have one story, which is clearly an opinion piece, and we welcome opinion pieces.
We sure do.
And opinion pieces, hey, are, guess what? They're one-sided. That's why they're opinion pieces. Exactly. So he didn't like the opinion piece because he felt it was just way too one-sided, obviously, and this guy Patrick had a bone to pick with the government.
Yep.
But what we did on our show was kind of delve into this a little bit deeper, and he appreciated the fact that we tried to tease out of this something that has meaning for quality professionals in general.
Well, and of course, that's the purpose of the show, really. The purpose of the show, for everyone who's watched it now for the last several months, is that we jump off from the stories that we run in QDD. This isn't a rehash of those stories. What this is looking at those stories from a different perspective and putting them in some context that the users, that the readers, the viewers will get something more out of than just what appeared in QDD. So thanks, BJ, for appreciating our efforts on that. That's definitely what we're trying to do.
Okay.
And we appreciate that.
So that's letters, and that's
great.
pretty much the show.
Great, that's pretty much the show. But before we go, I want to circle back on I want to bring back a segment that we mentioned a few weeks ago.
Right.
We said we'd be doing this a couple times going forward. The Eye segment, which on occasion we'll look at broader topics that affect the quality industry and affect you and I and all of us out here. And the one we want to talk about this week involves industry and education. Now, ongoing topic of concern that we've covered many times in Quality Digest, as well as through CMSC, which is publications that we help with as well. And really this comes down to STEM education. Dirk, maybe you can chat a little bit about STEM and why this is important.
Sure. One of the big issues facing the United States today, we've talked about it, is that we don't have enough people going out of school, from high school into college with an interest in studying engineering. And as a result, we are not putting as many technology-oriented employees into the marketplace as we used to. So we're talking engineers, technicians, scientists, that sort of thing.
Science, technology, engineering,
yeah, and STEM,
when
we talk about STEM education is science, technology, education, and mathematics. This is introduced at the middle school level because it's been shown that at the middle school level, this is where the interest in science and mathematics and engineering really starts. And so if you can get kids at the middle school level interested in science and math, that it's not something to be afraid of, it's not this big scary thing, that they're going to be more likely, you're going to promote more people into engineering studies once they get up through high school and into college. And so there's a big push in STEM studies within middle school and high school. And next week what we're going to do is cover two companies, the SAE, Society for Aeronautic Engineers, I believe, and Northrop Grumman, two companies, at least two, there's others as well, we'll try to touch on those as well, that are involved in promoting STEM education very actively within the middle schools in order to basically have a vested interest in this. The aeronautic industry in particular is hurting for technical and engiring people.
New people, yeah.
Key people in the aeronautics industry. These people are getting older, they're retiring, and they're not really being replaced. And so for them, this is a big issue, and it's worth it for them to help feed their future employees by feeding into STEM programs. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more next week.
Certainly, yeah. And we definitely support that as well. We feel that's part of our mission here at Quality Digest as well, is to cover those issues. So look out for that next week, and that's something you can look out for. So
hold on one second. Kimber had something for me, I think. Was there? Oh, sure. We had a question. I guess we had a question come in. What was the question, Kimber? I'm sorry, I can't bring it up on my computer here. We have a few minutes, so.
It was about there doesn't seem to be any information coming back after the change is implemented. Does it really improve, or all the goals of the change ever met?
I'm not sure which article that's referring to. That might be referring to Davis's piece, perhaps, about how maybe the feedback loop is what.
Okay, the question was, there doesn't seem to be any change, any information on the results of the change coming back in.
On the results of the change, yeah, coming back in. Well, again, I think that if I can answer that on behalf of Davis, I think that those feedback loops are absolutely critical to making sure that any change that you bring into an organization is maintained and is sustained over the period of time. Yeah, you have to look at this. If you're going to be bringing in, say, let's say it's a lean program, and let's say that lean is what you're bringing in, and you have a Kaizen team out there, perhaps working on a specific project. Yeah, you absolutely need to measure that, and Davis is very, very firm on that measurement both beforehand and afterwards is key to this, because you got to know what happened. You can't just say, well, we made this change, great, hope it works. You have to know what happened. You have to know what happened versus where you were at. Again, it's about the current state map versus the future state map, and the future state map that becomes the current state map as you move through the process. And if you're not achieving the change that you seek, you need to make changes in that process. You need to understand, to be flexible enough to change on the fly as well.
Okay, so that question actually was from Judy. Judy, I hope we answered your question there. It did come up on my computer here. Let me just read it and see if this makes more sense to you.
Sure.
Well, we'll spend a little bit of time, because after all, you guys aren't doing anything right. You're just
Friday.
Waiting out the storm. There doesn't seem to be information coming back after the change is implemented. Does it really improve, or are the goals of the change ever met. Just the next change down the line is brought forward again. Yeah.
Boy, that's an excellent point. I think that Judy, I think that does happen. I think it's wallpapering in some cases with some organizations. I think that it is wallpapering. It is move on to the next thing before anybody realizes we didn't hit the mark on the prior thing.
And hey, by the way, this is we've said this many times. That is really management's fault. If change is happening, it is in their best interest to really communicate to the employees that, hey, look, here was this change that you guys kind of resisted a little bit, but you stuck with us, you did it, and look, here's the results. Isn't that great? Because that helps them. The next change to come along really helps them to promote that next change. If they're not getting that, then the employees, like Judy's going, sure, I did this work, and I don't know if it did any good or not. Why should I bother?
It goes back to the heart. I think it goes back to the heart of psychology, human psychology in the form of change management. Everybody loves starting new projects. Who doesn't love the launch of a new project?
Right.
I mean, that's the most exciting part. You have the party, the launch session, and the kickoff meeting, or whatever it is, and wow, we're going to do this, and you set the goals, and everybody gets excited. That's great. You should definitely have that motivation, that enthusiasm, but you got to see it through. The proof is in the pudding is when you get into it and you get into the trenches. Can you sustain? Can you maintain?
Yeah.
That's the important part.
And actually, tying back into Aaron's article too. Boy, we really are going on about this, aren't we? Okay, that's okay. This is interesting because this is really where it all comes down to. If you make a change, let's say some sort of change is made in complaint processing. You've got somebody on a call center, right? And they're getting these complaints coming in. So you push this change down to them and say, okay, guys, you got to start being more friendly on the phone. You've got to answer the phones quicker. You got to get back to them with their answers faster. This is what you got to do. Boom, boom, boom. And they do that, and it trickles its way up, and the complaints go down, and the sales get better, and all the people up at the top go, yay!
It worked.
It worked. And then the poor guy in the call center's going, so I'm doing all this, and what happened?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What's his incentive or her incentive to keep doing that? But if management comes back and says, man, you guys did awesome, because you've been doing all this, our complaints are gone down. Hey, guess what? Sales are up.
Yeah, here's the results. Here's the results.
Here's the results. Man, that is such a motivator.
Oh, absolutely.
Look, you've seen a call center. Sure. We used to have a call center. You've got a million people sitting there locked to their phones all day long. Man, anything you can give them to let them know that they're doing their job and that it's working, that they're part of the team.
Absolutely. Very, very critical.
Okay.
Well, Judy, thank you.
We're all pumped up now.
Judy, thanks for doing that, though. Thanks for writing us and commenting. We encourage everyone to write us, and we'll certainly do all we can to get your comments on the air during the show if we can. So thanks for that.
Yep, and that's it for today. We ran a little long, but thanks for sticking with us. Hope you enjoyed that last little bit of discussion. Judy, that's all for you. See, we're very personal here at Quality Digest. We talk just to you, Judy. That's it for today. We'll see you next week. And for those of you on the East Coast, if you're not watching, we understand why. And if you are watching, just stay safe. If it gets any closer, be sure you get yourself to a safe place and home with your family.
Be well. We're thinking of you. So have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
So long.